Everybody, I am so excited that I have the opportunity now to be able to read the next chapter of our book by Father Homer Rogers, a collection of Bible stories, bedtime ones as a matter of fact, for children. And you may remember that last week I had the great joy of being able to read it with several people around, only one of whom was a human being, plus two ducks who I've decided not to include today because they're being a little bit noisy. But now I'm going to turn over here to my adorable granddaughter, Betty. Betty, you look different. What happened since last week? Oh my goodness, you lost a tooth. Any of you out there ever lost a tooth? Well, for the older people watching this, I just want you to know that the tooth fairy is much more generous than the tooth fairy used to be. So what'd you get for that tooth? $2. $2? Oh, that's pretty good. You can put that in the fund for the braces. So that's a good deal. Okay, so we're going to go now to the next chapter. Let's see if we can remember what we read last week. I'm wearing my Mr. Rogers shirt, even though this is Father Rogers, and this is Mr. Rogers. He's all reminding us it's all good in the hood. So we're ready to get started. And last week we talked about creation, didn't we? We talked about all the things that were being created, and that's when the ducks started getting excited because they were trying to figure out when they were created. So now what we're going to do is go to the next story, which is God makes Adam and Eve. All right. So, after God had made the earth and all the trees and shrubs and vegetables and the fish and birds and the animals, at last he was ready to make man. And the angels all crowded around eagerly to watch. You know how people love to watch a workman that really knows his business? Well, the angels stood around on tiptoe, looking over each other's shoulders to see what God would make of mankind. But the bad angels watched from a distance, grunting and growling. They weren't happy at all. We'll return to them later. In the meanwhile, God said, first, we'll have to make a proper place to put man in. So, he sent his angels scurrying all around, all over the world to find the loveliest spot. A spot where the ground was fertile, and there was plenty of water and shade trees, a place called Eden. And God set about to plant a garden. And he sent the angels out to gather proper things to plant in the garden. Being nothing, if not practical, God first gathered together for the good things to eat, all the things that maybe you still like today. Strawberry bushes and blackberries and cranberries to go with Thanksgiving turkeys. And pumpkins for Halloween and for pumpkin pie. And carrots and spinach, because even if they aren't as tasty as strawberries, they are good for you. The angels came back loaded with all kinds of vegetables, and they had loads of fun planting them all in neat rows and fastening labels on them. Then God sent the angels out to gather up young trees so that man could have nuts and fresh fruits in season. They found pecans and walnuts and almonds and lots of other nut trees. And they brought back peach trees and pear trees and apple trees and fig trees and lemon and orange and grapefruit and coconut trees and lots more. And the angels smacked their lips, wished they were going to be men so that they could eat such delicious things. Because see, angels don't really have bodies. And of course, no, they can't even eat anything. But the good angels weren't really a bit jealous because they knew they had good things that men can't have. And you know, you can't have everything. Then, because God isn't just practical, but also loves pretty things that aren't a bit useful except to enjoy, he sent the angels hustling around to gather up a lot of flowering shrubs and rose bushes and tulip and daffodil bulbs, azaleas, rhododendrons, and lots of other flowers and plants. All kinds of plants that were very pretty but had such funny names that only a gardener would know what they are, and hardly anyone would be able to spell them. They all had quite a busy time at planting things and telling the weeds, which are nothing but flowers that grow where you don't want them to, and to grow somewhere else, please, because angels are very polite. And they planted grass and mowed it neatly, and they put in paths and a fish pool and some benches to sit on and maybe even a sundial. I expect they did. Well, I would have, wouldn't you? And they hung some birdhouses around to attract the songbirds. And it was the most beautiful garden you ever did see. Finally, everything was ready and God began to make man. Are you going to make him like us? Asked the angels. Well, he'll have a spirit like an angel, God replied. But you know, I've rather taken a fancy to some of the animals we have made, so I think I'll give man a body like an animal and a spirit like an angel. One of the angels looked kind of doubtful and asked politely, won't they be likely to get their bodies and their spirits mixed up? And won't that cause some trouble for them? Yes, I suppose they will, God answered, but I think it might be fun for them to have a body like an animal. Of course, they won't know me in the same way you angels do, and because their souls will look out upon reality through the body of an animal, they'll not see the truth as closely as you do and not as clearly as you do. They will probably often mistake their feelings for their thoughts. Is that what you meant by getting their bodies and their spirits mixed up? They'll be likely to cause some misunderstanding. That will occur from time to time. And I expect that some of them will even suppose that feeling is more spiritual than thinking. But they'll be able to swing and play hopscotch and climb trees and go swimming and make love to one another and build things with their hands and paint pictures and play the piano. What's a piano? Asked one of the angels. Well, it's kind of an instrument for making music that man's going to invent after a while, God replied. Please don't interrupt. And having bodies, they'll be able to sing while they play the piano and experiment with putting different foods together and seasoning them with herbs and spices, and they'll have lots of fun. Don't you worry. Can we play with them? Asked an angel. God got real thoughtful for a moment, like he was looking way down into the future. And just for a moment, the happy smile almost left his face, as if he had thought of something really sad. Finally, he answered the angel, yes, I'm going to assign one of you angels to be the special playmate and friend of each man that I make. But it's going to be work as well as play for you. The bad angels, I'm sorry to say, will likely be jealous and will probably try to get the humans to play with them. And you may have to fight for your human friend and guard him against temptation. He's not going to be as smart as you are. And you'll have your hands full keeping him from siding with the bad angels. That will be easy, said one of the angels. We'll just run the bad angels away. God was still quite thoughtful and pensive looking as he said, no, it won't be as easy as all that. You see, I'm giving strict orders that man will be absolutely free to choose between you, the good, or the bad, whichever he wants. And some of them will probably side with the bad angels. And it will make you very sorry when your special human friend turns his back on you and goes off to play with a bad angel. You want to get mad at him, but you mustn't. You must stay with him and be ready to help him the instant he shows any sign of wanting to leave the bad angel. "Oh, we surely will," replied the angels eagerly. "Fine," said God. "I knew I could count on you." Now everything was ready. First, God gathered together all the necessary ingredients from the ground. Iron to make man's blood rich and red, calcium to make strong bones, phosphorus, and a bit of copper and all kinds of minerals. Then he began putting them together in the most intricate way and made a beautiful human body. And the angels were delighted. Then God put his mouth over the man's mouth, like giving CPR, and he breathed into the man's mouth. The man began to breathe too, and sat up and looked around with wonder and delight at all the lovely things in the garden. But he looked right past all the crowds of angels as if they weren't there. "Can't he see us?" asked the angels anxiously. "Of course not," God answered. "You are spirits, and man can only see things that have bodies. He can't even see me." Adam, for that was his name, paid no attention to the angels chattering all around him. "Can't he hear us talking?" asked an angel, almost in a whisper. "No, of course not," God replied. "You are not really talking, you know. Not what Adam would call talking anyway. You don't have a mouth and vocal cords and lips for fashioning sound. You and I just think thoughts and we know what the other is thinking instantly. But man isn't going to be like that. He'll have to make sounds that he can hear with his ears." "But how are we going to help him if we can't talk to him?" one of the angels asked, almost in exasperation. "You can put your thoughts into his mind," God answered, "but how will he know they're our thoughts and not his own?" asked an angel. "He won't," replied God. "That's part of the way we'll make sure he has real freedom of choice. The bad angels will have the same disadvantage, though. They can put bad thoughts into his mind, and he'll think they're his own. He can choose which of them he wishes to give his attention to. It'll be all right. You'll see." Meanwhile, Adam was wandering around the garden, admiring the shrubs and the flowers and nibbling all the tasty things and having a perfectly wonderful time discovering all the nooks and crannies in the shrubbery and all the little pools and brooks and the fishes and the birds. Then God said to the angels, "Watch carefully." All the angels stopped talking and held their breath, and suddenly in the entire garden there was no wind blowing and not a bird twittered on its branch. Even the flowers stopped giving off their scent, and the fish in the pool stopped swimming and were still, very still. There was a hush and a deep silence, and Adam stopped still and stood as one listening for some far-off sound. And God said, "Adam!" Adam gave a start, for out of the stillness came a gentle breeze. It carried a sound as if every bird in the world had started to sing all at once, and indeed they had. And as if every flower in the world had sent forth a double measure of its perfume along the breeze to Adam's nose, and all the ponds and brooks began to ripple with the sound of water merrily running over pebbles and rocks, and the leaves of the trees rustled all together. It sounded to Adam as if the whole world had spoken his name, yet he wasn't sure. Again, God said, "Adam!" Once again, there came that lovely breeze-born sound of birds singing and leaves rustling and waters rippling, and the lovely smell of millions of flowers in the bloom all at once came flooding over Adam. Adam looked about him in wonder and knew that he was not alone in the world and that God was with him, because he couldn't have told you how he knew. But he knew. God went over and walked by Adam's side and gave him a conducted tour of the garden and showed him what vegetables and fruits were good to eat. "You can eat the fruit of all the trees in the garden, said God. But don't eat the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, because if you do, you will die. Adam agreed that it wasn't a good idea to eat from that tree. Then God explained to him what fun he and his angels had had making things. Now, Adam could make things too if he wished, and how the garden was going to be his home. God explained that Adam would have to take care of it and not let the weeds grow where they would interfere with the flowers. The angels trooped along behind him, chattering like happy children, and all nature seemed to join in the fun. God introduced Adam to all the animals and told him not to mistreat them, but to be friends with them. And even the wild animals were tame and friendly. Adam had a wonderful time thinking up names for all the animals. And whatever he called them became their name. Adam was delighted with his home and his friends. Then Adam set about to care for his garden as God had instructed. The animals followed him about curiously, and he had to warn them not to step on the tender plants. And they tried to help him with his work, but they weren't very much help because animals don't have hands, and they aren't really very smart. They could be of some help, but not much. Adam discovered that the dog could fetch him tools, but he often brought a hoe when Adam wanted a rake, and it wasn't really his fault because it's hard for a dog to tell the difference. Now, God was not through making things. He had intended all along that Adam should have a wife, but it's only proper for a man to be a bachelor for a while so that he will come to feel the need for a wife and appreciate her when she comes. Of course, Adam didn't know about wives, so he couldn't know what was missing. After lunch, Adam grew sleepy and decided to take a nap. When he lay down, he did feel a bit lonely. He patted the dog on the head and thanked him for helping, even though he realized that he could have been more helpful if only something. While Adam was sleeping, God took one of his ribs and working very quietly so as not to awaken Adam until it was all finished, he fashioned it into the most beautiful woman you could ever imagine. She was sitting there when Adam woke up, smiling at him in that mysterious way that women have of looking at a man, as if she understood all the deepest secrets of his heart. To this day, man has never discovered if she really understands or just looks like she does, but Adam was too smart to take a chance. So he told her everything anyway. Adam explained everything to her, all about the garden and the animals, and she listened like she was really interested, even though Adam more than half suspected she knew it all anyway. They all had the most exciting time getting acquainted. They were both a little shy at first, but their shyness soon went away when they started working together in the garden. Adam found to his delight that Eve was eager to help him take care of it. In fact, she was even better at certain jobs than Adam was himself. She never once mistook a hoe for a rake, and she acted as if she really enjoyed helping Adam. Something about her made Adam feel a foot taller every time she looked at him, and she had a most wonderful laugh. I like your laugh, by the way. And Adam half suspected that she was laughing at him, but he didn't really mind if she was, because he wasn't a bit proud. Besides, he loved her very much, and she was very beautiful. And it was so much fun to have her around. They laughed together a great deal, like you and I do. The next day, God gathered all his angels together and said, you know, today is Sunday, and that's the day we're supposed to rest. So find yourself a shady place and stretch out and rest for a while. And be quiet, if you please. Let's not disturb Adam and Eve, because it's their honeymoon, and they're still getting acquainted. So God and the angels rested and talked only in whispers. Adam and Eve rested too, and the birds only twittered a little bit, kind of like Joe upstairs right now. Do you hear her trying to get involved in this story? That's our bird, by the way. And the breeze died down, and the flowers only gave off their most delicate perfume, and the whole world was very still and very, very lovely. And Adam and Eve lay down in a shady spot on the grass and talked about the things young people find to talk about when they are very much in love with life and with one another. They had plans for the many exciting and wonderful things they could find to make and do together in the days ahead of them. And because it was Sunday, they didn't forget to thank God for all the wonderful things He had given them to enjoy. And most of all, for each other. Betty, just like I give thanks to God for you. And I give thanks to God for everybody out there today. Next week, I'm going to be excited to read something from the same book, Genesis. This time, it's going to be about something called the fall. And I don't mean the kind of fall when you just tumble off a chair. So we're going to talk about the fall next week. And in the meantime, everybody, don't forget, tune in next week where we will take up with the next story. Don't forget, this is really fun to read. In fact, a lot of the people out there are really adults. And they're having more fun than some of the kids, but they don't want to let on that they are. Yeah. So have a wonderful day, everybody. May God bless you and continue to enjoy the time you have to spend with Him. Father Rogers, Mr. Rogers, and I all love the way you are, and we really love what Jesus is doing in your life.